Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society, bringing you our nightly update regarding all tropical basins across the world here tonight. And we've got some new players on the board today. We have new Tropical Depression 10E out here in the Eastern Pacific, no threat to land. We're going to cover real quick Tropical Storm Fernand up here, and then we'll have a nice discussion regarding Invest 99L, who received a reconnaissance mission this afternoon, and a special outlook was issued on Invest 99L at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time this afternoon. So, if we look at the main page of the National Hurricane Center, we will see that we did end up with a percentage reduction for Invest 99L. We'll go over that here in just a moment. First, we're going to touch on our tropical storm out there. As you can see, running the mesoscale imagery, as the sun is starting to go down on it, we can really see some of the hot towers blowing up in and around the center of circulation, and the flares really starting to take place now that the sun is going down over the storm. So it will be interesting to see if this thing can finally take advantage of the small window of opportunity for intensification that it has before it is picked up and ushered away. As we can see with its forecast track, it is forecast to go out and be with the fishes and interrupt potentially some shipping interest well away from Bermuda. If we were to take a look at our public advisory, we are located at 31.8 north, 59.8 west, approximately 295 miles east of Bermuda. Maximum sustained winds of 45 miles an hour, and movement is north-northeast at 13 miles an hour. Minimum central pressure of 1,009 millibars. There are currently no coastal watches or warnings in effect, and no hazards affecting land. If we take a look at the spaghetti plots for this, we can see that it is forecast to stay well away from Newfoundland, well away from the Azores, and usher itself out into the open waters of the North Atlantic. Taking a look at the discussion here this afternoon, Fernand continues to become better organized on satellite imagery with a more central dense overcast and a curve banding feature in the southern semicircles. Satellite intensity estimates are slightly higher, so the initial intensity is raised to 40 knots. Further intensification is anticipated during the next day or so, while Fernand remains in a warm water and light shear environment, tempered by plentiful environmental dry air. Around Tuesday, shear should increase along with the decrease in sea surface temperatures. This should cause weakening, and the storm will likely become post-tropical on Wednesday. No significant change to the previous forecast was made, and the latest NHC prediction is close to a blend of the previous one and the intensity model consensus. The initial motion is 25 degrees at 11 knots. The storm is likely to move to the north-northeast and then northeast at a faster forward speed during the next day or two as the steering flow gradually shifts from the subtropical ridge to the mid-latitude southwesterlies. There is more spread in the model guidance than the last cycle, seemingly due to the forecast depth of the storm. Generally, the models are a little slower, perhaps because Fernand isn't expected to be as strong and presumably won't feel faster upper level flow as much. The new NHC forecast follows the trend of the guidance, a bit slower than the previous advisory and just south of the HFIP corrected consensus model, or HCCA. If we take a look at the intensity, we're looking at in about 60 hours it'd be in post-tropical, and in 72 hours totally dissipated. by looking at our rip currents. As we could see, we are still looking at high risks for rip currents across areas of the United States. Folks, please make sure you are, if you plan to go out to the beach, please make sure you check with the local authorities and follow all regulations. If there's a double red flag, please don't get in the water. Now, a real quick, because we have been covering this for the last couple days since the exit of Hurricane Erin. This is the upwelling sea surface temperature anomaly here in the western Atlantic from Erin, as we could see. And if we take a look, a large pool of cold water, or much cooler water, I can't say cold water, but much cooler water has been brought up to the surface where Erin tracked through. And to really highlight that, as we could see here on today's update here, right in this area where Erin tracked, we see all that upwelling that has occurred. This isn't going to last very long. This is only going to last a couple weeks, but at least it has put a significant dent in the oceanic heat content here off the east coast of the United States. It's not saying much for the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean, as we can see here, but it has certainly taken a large chunk out of the available energy here in the Western Atlantic. All right, now we're going to jump into Invest 99L. Now, if we remember yesterday, Invest 99L had a lot of tracks that were getting out here. Oh, Lord have mercy, I about jumped out of my skin. That was a close lightning strike. Pardon me. We've got approaching thunderstorms. But as we could see here tonight, we do not have as many of these models that are taking this through. So we are having quite a bit of a reduction on this, though Habs B is the only one that wants to kind of do something with this, but it hasn't been consistent in its runs. Now, right now, as of the 4:20 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, not the 2 p.m., the special outlook was issued for this. We are now at a 30% chance of development overall over the next 48 hours and 7 days. It doesn't have 7 days in this hatched area, but it does have a 30% chance over the next 48 hours. If we take a look at the reconnaissance flights today, we will note that they had plenty of winds. This was the first pass right here. This was the second pass of the plane. It came in like so, kind of hung around through here, went back up around, down through, and then up and out. All right, that was its flight path. So it did get a good read on what we had with Invest 99L, and this island right here being Barbados. So it did not find a close center of circulation at all. You've got rather weak winds down here on the southern quadrant. Some gale force winds getting up here into the northern area, associated most likely with the mid-level center at this point. But as far as the quote-unquote surface feature is concerned, there was nothing there this afternoon, and that prompted the special outlook that resulted in a reduction of development percentages from 40% down to 30%. Now, taking a look at our ensembles, if we remember yesterday when we were looking at the ensembles, we had quite a few of them that were wanting to potentially develop this and getting it into the Gulf of Mexico. Well, when we look at the 0Z, it kind of backed off, only had 2 And now that we look at the 12Z, the euro has pretty much abandoned 99L's potential development here. So we're going to still continue to keep an eye on it, but this is a promising sign from the ensembles, and if we combine that with the spaghetti plots themselves. Halves B is the only outlier right now, and it has not been consistent with its solutions. A lot of these, if you notice, because the lines don't go out that far, it is pretty much forecast to kind of open up or die altogether south of Hispaniola as it is being compressed between the two land masses, and this wind, the wind shear picks up, and also we end up with some dry air and some African dust associated with it as well. So the euro, this is all the way out 10 days. The euro legacy is showing some pretty decent and consistent signs here. We've got our current tropical storm. We've got our frontal boundary here with the potential to see some type of low pressure center developing, or just wave of energy, non-tropical in its origin, but just some kind of wave of energy coming off of the United States and running up the East Coast. And then, of course, we've got a few little scratch marks coming out here as we get late into the forecast period of 10 days. So just things to monitor. It doesn't look like that we will have much activity, and it certainly looks like that Invest 99L has a much more positive signal for no development than the small low signal that we were looking at yesterday. We're still going to keep an eye on it, but tonight is better news than what we had last night. So looking at the Euro AI, it's the same identical feature almost that we had with the Euro Legacy. The only thing that we have is a little bit less chicken scratch back here, what I like to call it, just kind of just random lines. We still have the low pressure coming off of the United States associated with the frontal boundary and running up, and our tropical storm. We have nothing in the Western Caribbean. Okay, let's compare that to the GEFS. And if we take a look here, this runs out 10 days. The GEFS is not very excited on things. We have our tropical storm exiting. We have our another little area of low pressure that could potentially come off the United States. It's in pretty decent agreement with all models. We have a little bit of a signal right here, but it is negligible because it's just not enough lines. So all in all, we're looking pretty good. Now this goes out 168 hours. Now if I push it out 10 and we go out 10 days, again, we'll have to watch 99L right here just to make sure that it doesn't try something sneaky and try to get up and cross over the Yucatan, because if anything gets into the Gulf of Mexico, it is not going to be a pretty scenario, and we do not want 99L in there. And then we also have a little bit of chicken scratch here back towards Africa as we are starting to get into the beginning of September, as you could see here. So all 240 hours are bringing us into the opening days and of September. So please keep that in mind. We still are not to the climatological peak season. Now a quick look into our Google DeepMind stuff tonight. Yes, they have this area here with Invest 99L labeled as a tropical entity. It is not a tropical entity. The Google DeepMind is still young, so please keep that in mind. It just debuted for public use earlier this year. And as soon as I slide this forward, 12 hours, it is gone. So as you could see, please don't look into that more than it is. As I continue to run this forward, we will see with our new Tropical Depression 10E out here into the Eastern Pacific, nothing is threatening land with 10E. We have nothing threatening land with Fernand in our Atlantic Basin, running it out. So now we're 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, 8 days. We don't see anything in the Gulf of Mexico or Western Caribbean. What we do see is a little bit of clustering of hints or seeds coming off of the African mainland here and exiting out into the main development region of the tropical Atlantic. And then another set of seeds right here. Let me close my crayons. Another set of seeds right here in the Eastern Pacific. Now, these are kind of interesting because some of the tracks may want to bring it up over the Baja Peninsula and then potentially driving more moisture into the southwestern United States and reinvigorating some of the monsoon trough. Or some of the monsoon, not monsoon trough, but some of the monsoon moisture that has been occurring out there and some of the landslides and mudslides. Yeah, Amanda, you still got a little bit, a while to go. Stalled out frontal boundary, and it's not going to go anywhere for a little bit. Okay, because we showed this last night, I want to make sure that we go over it again because obviously when we go day by day, we get differences in model outputs, outcomes, and solutions. So here again, we have our ship's diagram. We do still have a negligible rapid intensification probabilities. I am certainly not concerned with any of this at all whatsoever. We don't even have a storm developed, so rapid intensification is negligible if we don't even have, a coherent center, as seen by the recon. Our track from our ship's model. Now, when we get over here to these particular graphics, we have in the bottom graphic is more important to me than the top graphic because this one, our green line, represents our 700 to 500 millibar relative humidity. So our 700 to 500 millibar, let's go through that and make sure everybody knows. Our 500 millibar, approximately 18,000 feet, and our 700 millibar at approximately 10,000 feet. So in between that range of about 2 to 3.5 miles above the ocean surface is what we're looking at with this green line. What it does is it shows an increase in the mid-level moisture as we go through the forecast period. So that would be a check for this. But the overall shear of the storm, as we could see here, reaches a little bit of a threshold that may not be conducive for decent development. And then if we take and compare that with one line of our upper graph here with our storm speed in knots, the storm is moving quickly to the west. And because this doesn't really slow down that much, it doesn't really have an opportunity to get itself together. Now, what we do see is right before it were to make contact here with the Yucatan on its forecast period, we see a little bit of upper level divergence. This has gone down from what we saw yesterday. So right now, what we're looking at is the potential of maybe a little bit of shear being introduced back to the system. This has also increased um, from yesterday's update. So all in all, we are looking at more positive signs. It's certainly not set in stone, but definitely more positive signs going forward for Invest 99L. Now, our nightly update with the MJO, this thing is falling flat. And when I say flat, this is a damn near going right to the center of the circle and just kind of hanging out. So, where this goes after that will remain to be seen. So, we'll continue to update this. It may fall into the circle and then pop back out, and it could really pop back out wherever it wants to. Looking at our upper level wind velocity. So if I scroll this down just a little bit, because I'm not really interested in the stuff that is up there on the top for our viewing audience. We read this by time by going down. As we go down, we go into the future. Okay, August 29th, September 1st, September 3rd, September 3rd or 5th. So as we see, the MJO and everything moves from west to east. So you would expect a propagation something along this line. What we also see is the location of where these anomalously lower winds here in the blue and the green are located. So we've got this area right here that would kind of be kind of lined up into the eastern Pacific, maybe not the Gulf of Mexico. If we don't have a seed, we're not going to get something to grow. But the eastern Pacific is a little bit of a different story because they definitely have seeds. So when we get over to the Eastern Pacific, and it just kind of confirms what we see with the Google DeepMind, as we go all the way through this, we do have some signals. And yes, Jonathan, I will be mentioning our anniversary day today of Hurricane Andrew into South Florida. And day after tomorrow is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. When we get into late August and early September, we could just come up with all types of anniversary dates. But these are some significant ones in the historical context of United States landfalls. And they are, to be looked back upon and lessons learned from them. Yes, yes, Jonathan. Andrew changed everything. Not only with the building codes, but it also changed the way that the insurance industry also works, and especially in the state of Florida. But I digress. We won't talk about that. So, real quick tonight, a quick look at Earth Null. As we could see, we do have a low pressure center here off of the east coast of the United States. This is lifting out. This is shown on our ensembles, okay? But it's obviously not tropical in nature. So not all lines will you always see on the ensembles will represent a tropical cyclone. Okay? So let's take a look at our Invest 99L. We're going to come up to the 700 millibar level. Again, remember, 10,000 feet approximately. And as we can see, we've got just a little bit of a roll in the wave pattern. This is where the wave axis is associated with 99L. Well, if we come up to the 500 millibar level, we've got a little bit of a blotch of energy here, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. And if we come down to the surface, the wave axis is a little further to the south. Well, The reason for that is we've got a little bit of shear that is helping to pull the mid-level away from the surface thing, whatever you want to call it. So it's certainly not structurally sound by any means at all. So what we're going to do here is we're going to bring this back down. We'll go to the 850 millibar level. And this is the 850 millibar level. As we can see here, this is approximately 1 mile above the ocean surface. 5,000 feet, 5,280 feet. It ebbs and flows, folks. So as we run this forward, we will be using the GFS deterministic solution, or its operational run. So we are now 24 hours in advance, and you could still see a little bit of the swell in the winds right here as they come up and they kind of bend a little bit and then they come back down. This is the wave axis itself. Now, one thing that we will note is at this point, you have the high mountainous terrain of these islands right here, and you also have the landmass and the Andes Mountains down here into portions of South America. The winds between these two compress, and they speed up at the lower levels. As we go up into the as we go up to the 500 millibar level, so now we're going to go another 2.5 miles above where we were. You could see the wind slow down dramatically. Okay, now the wave axis here, what is shown on Earth null, the wave axis here is outrunning the mid-level feature. The lower levels are moving quicker. Go over here. The lower levels are moving much faster than the mid-level. So you're always going to try to run the whatever surface feature is going to outrun whatever's above it. That is a positive sign. That induces shear by itself. Well, if we come up to the 250 millibar level, so this will bring us about 6 miles above the ocean surface, we don't see a lot. And that is key, because even though we do see a little bit of these winds right here being just a little bit stronger than those winds. So you're basically looking at a scenario to where at the 250 millibar level here at about 6 miles above the ocean surface, you're running winds that are kind of like this. One being a lot stronger, or, kind of underperforming in a way right here. So the storm isn't going to like that. And the fact that the storm is going to be weak, it is going to move on these lower level winds. It's going to want to be steered by those lower level winds, because it's not going to have anything up here in the mid levels to quote unquote feel too much of that flow. So it's going to run on this particular wind current here. The 850 and even the 700 millibar level. So we're going to take this forward another 24 hours. Now, at this point, it becomes very difficult to discern where the wave pocket is. You still see a little bit of a kind of a bump in the winds, but not much. Even if we come up to the 700 millibar level, where you can barely see the wave pocket at this point, somewhere in this region right here, and we will come up to the 500 millibar level, and as you can see, the surface feature has pretty much just outrun anything that's here at the mid-level. Now, we do see a little bit of a twist and a spin with that, but allow me to come down to the surface. There's nothing there. This is just what's being forecasted is just a mid-level circulation of shower and thunderstorm activity. It is not in any way, shape, or form associated with a tropical cyclone. This is just rain and thunderstorms. So, all right, let's go ahead. We'll come back down to our 850 and we'll go forward one more set. Now we're out into the future to where if we were going to see something, it would certainly be there. We don't have anything. And even that mid-level feature has now being associated with Hispaniola, and we don't have anything, folks. Now, whether this one thing that we'll have to watch is to see whether the wave gets north of Honduras here. If it does get north of Honduras, then it buys it just a little bit extra time over open waters here off the coast of Belize and north of Honduras. Or does it stay like the ensembles and the spaghetti plots are calling for? And is this going to drive it down into Nicaragua and then off into the Eastern Pacific? We'll watch. We'll wait and see. But that's not the only thing. We also have Saharan air and our good friend Uncle Sal, or Saharan air layer. We use Sal as an acronym. As you could see, as this gets into parts of the Caribbean, it is also going to be dealing with a great amount of dust. And even the NASA model itself also has this charging into right about the Nicaraguan Honduran border and then across Central America and out into the Eastern Pacific. But if we look at the dust beyond that, we're not getting much. Okay? Maybe with the next wave as it is beginning to exit, we may see a preceding plume associated with it. But right now, we're going to get a large gap in the dust, as you could see here, about day 7. The dust across pretty much the entirety of the basin is forecast to collapse. And it's that time of year, folks. Like, dust don't last forever. Taking a look at our upcoming wind shear, we have the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. As we run this out and we get it to about 72, 96 hours, knowing that Invest 99L is preceding or kind of in front of this shear vector over portions of the Caribbean. But even if it were to try to get itself established, it does look here in about 6 days, and I'm going to draw it out on both models. We get a shear belt right in here. So we're going to have to wait and see. The GFS obviously has a completely different solution here than what the Euro does. There is much more of a pronounced kink here with the Euro, and it is more linear or flat with the GFS. And not to mention that the solution down here and the solution down here, they certainly don't come close to matching. So some questions, and we're only out 6 days, but certainly some variance there. Our 700 millibar humidity levels. Now keep in mind, again, we'll go back here. This is our 10,000 foot level here at 700 millibars. And we're looking at our dry air and moist air because that plays a factor. We looked at the forecast on the ship's model. And we've got the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. And as we run this forward, we will note that there is certainly that pocket of preceding dry air associated with 99L. The Euro really does not have much for moisture at all. But even though we won't have any Saharan air coming across the basin, what we've been seeing is a wave breaking situation, dumping dry air into portions of the Atlantic. So let me explain real quick what's going on. So you've got a high pressure here, right? And you've got a high pressure here. Well, you get waves of energy that are going to run around clockwise around the high pressure, right? And you end up getting pockets of dry air that are injected into the northern portion of the main development region across the Atlantic. All right? As you can see, we get this large area of dry air dropped into it. Now, I'm going to erase all this, and I'm actually going to go back on the model so you can watch how some of this dry air comes down, cycles around there on the northwestern coast of Africa, cycles around, and then begins to cycle down and back through the basin. Some of that dry air moistens up and kind of, ends up kind of getting pockmarked in a way, or like a Dalmatian. But that is what has been reinforcing some of the dry air across the basin. We don't necessarily need Saharan air for dry air. We are getting dry air from other places as well. So it remains to be seen. We're looking at our scratch marks and chicken scratch out there. The GFS, if you notice, right at the very end of the run, has a area of spin coming off of the African mainland, but we also have a very pronounced wave associated with the euro as well. But there is a ton of very, very dry air that is going to be associated with it. In the euro, we've got our wave axis here, and the dry air is already starting to entrain on the southern side. With the GFS, it is a little bit slower. We've got a little bit of dry air that is trying to intrude in, but as this continues off this way and this continues out this way, those two will meet. And I will show that to you as we go out further and further into La La Land. As you could see, that is a part of the wave breaking over the Atlantic Basin this year. So fingers crossed, things are going to remain quiet over the next upcoming days. All right, let's see. I'm going to go through. If you guys got any questions regarding the Atlantic Basin, please feel free and reach out. Let me know. Just type it right on air into the chat portion. I do have both chats live up here in front of me. So now we're going to jump out to the Eastern Pacific. We're going to talk about Tropical Depression 10E out here. As you can see, it is located out here into the open waters. No real threat to land. Our forecast cone brings it out here, just wide open waters, no interests whatsoever. We are currently located at 16.0 north, 109.7 west, about 475 miles south of the southern tip of the Baja, California. Maximum sustained winds 35 miles an hour, moving west-northwest, it's 14 miles an hour. Minimum central pressure is 1,006 millibars. There are currently no coastal watches or warnings in effect, and no hazards affecting land. If we look at the forecaster's discussion, I'm not going to go through this one because there's no real threat to land whatsoever. If we look at the intensity, it is forecast to remain a tropical storm through 72 hours, fall back to a tropical depression in about 96 hours, and then becoming a post-tropical remnant low over the stable air mass and cooler waters of the Eastern Pacific. Now, a much more intense story. Probably the number one going on here in the world today, right now. This is Kajiki, and this is a typhoon out here into the South China Sea, and it is not messing around. This underwent a very robust organization phase since we last looked at this. It is currently at 90 knots and raising straight hell over Hainan Island. And I'm saying it that way because, as we could see here from Cyclonic WX website, look at the overall cloud pattern and rain associated with this. Now, let me try to get a good color for this. Let's see. Let's just go absolutely pearl white and see if this works for us. Hainan Island is located right here, but the frame jumps, so we get a kind of a relocation. As you could see, we are forecast to move into Vietnam. There has been over 500,000 people already evacuated in Vietnam for the arrival of this storm. The rainfall over Hainan Island has just been absolutely ridiculous today. And with the same website, we get the use of radar that is out here. And folks, I mean, this has been ongoing for hours. This has been ongoing since this morning. This flow right here into Hainan Island. It's been ongoing. I guarantee you there is massive flooding taking place here, especially along the eastern and southeastern shore. Although, let me figure out how to stop this. Here, let's go up here. We'll drag it out to the end. We will erase and then come back. The eye wall itself, the eye feature, and it was very, very pronounced and, very, very intense, did scrape right here along the southern portion of Hainan. So big time wins. They got it kicked out of them this morning, folks. They did. Okay. Again, that's about all that I have. If you guys got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. We're still running in to where we've got the rest of hurricane season, or the peak part of season to go, folks. Please do not let your guard down. We're getting somewhere in this range right here. We've still got the climatological peak of season to go. Right now we're looking at decent, conditions and quiet conditions across the basin, but I can promise you it can all flip on a dime, and the light switch can get turned on, and we could pick up with some activity. So please make sure that you're just kind of checking back periodically on the tropics. So, all right, folks, I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down here for tonight, leaving everybody with the last graphic here of the Global Tropics Hazards Outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. We will be live again tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central here on Facebook and YouTube. Feel free to join us. And if you guys got any questions, please feel free to ask. And we'll talk to everybody tomorrow night. Until then, have a great evening. Bye for now.